to them urging them to show their support for Julian Assange by signing an early day motion that Chris Williamson had put forward. In this video, we're going to look at those responses and evaluate them and explain what the truth is, because there's quite a few factual errors in the responses from MPs. I hope you're going to enjoy this. I'm going to try and do this and keep my hair and not pull it out. It's going to be difficult. Hi everyone. So a few weeks ago I requested that as many of my supporters and as many people who saw my videos as possible to send letters to their MPs asking for support of this, which is an early day motion that Chris Williamson, independent MP Chris Williamson, put forward to condemn the ongoing incarceration of Julian Assange and demand his release. And many of you sent off those letters, and not just sent off those letters, but also I've just had another one sent to me right this second. I've just had another one sent to me. So many of you got letters from MPs, and the responses range from the ridiculous to standard, as you would expect from out-of-touch MPs. Right, let me just turn everything down on that. Right, we're ready to go. They ranged. I've done a couple of videos so far already, highlighting a couple of responses which were ridiculous, one of which was an MP that's standing down. Of all the MPs that I'm going to be talking about tonight, and there is about 16 of them, yes, one of them is standing down, that's all, and I'll highlight which one. So before I start with this video, first of all I want to thank everybody who sent a letter to their MP. It's really important to get them on record as to how they feel about Julian Assange, because there are so many factual things that MPs believe, and people in general believe that they are factually incorrect, and we're going to highlight some of those in the stream today. So I want to thank everybody who had sent me their letters. For the purposes of this video, I've deleted all of your names out of all this correspondence and copied and pasted everything into Word documents. So none of your details will be revealed on this channel, on this stream. But you know who you are, and I want to thank all of you, because some of the information that you've given me, as you will see, is quite gold. Is gold. I'm going to take you to this one first. This is an email that a subscriber sent to Siobhan McDonagh. For those of you who want to know who Siobhan McDonagh is, there she is. This is Siobhan McDonagh. She is an MP for Labour as well. She's the MP for Mitcham and Morden. So this is the letter a subscriber sent in. Said this: could I please ask to support the early day motion to condemn the treatment of Julian Assange? He is being held for nothing more than being an excellent journalist. Hear, hear, I agree. I think it's a disgrace the way this country is holding him without charging him. He has done his time for breaking bail, and so he should be released immediately. Regards. And like I say, I've taken all the names out. This is the reply. Because you can see it's a long one, but I'm going to read this because the first one I want to get in context. Siobhan said this. Siobhan replied with this: thank you for taking the time to writing me. As you will be aware, Mr. Assange was arrested in April of this year after almost 7 years spent in the Ecuadorian embassy, where he sought asylum on having breached his terms of his bail in June 2012. Siobhan, that's wrong. Your opening paragraph to your constituent is wrong. You're factually incorrect. He did not seek asylum where he sought asylum on having breached the terms of his bail. He didn't seek asylum because he breached terms of his bail. He sought asylum because he thought that there was a sealed indictment from America that would get him extradited to America if he was taken into police custody. And guess what, Siobhan? That's exactly what happened. So, I'm not sure whether that's factually untrue. I would say it's factually untrue, but whether he sought asylum on having breached bail terms. No, he sought asylum and in doing so breached his bail terms. We'll get into that in a second, but I want to carry on reading it. In 2010, the Swedish authorities opened an investigation into Julian Assange after accusations of sexual offences, including rape, were brought forward by 2 women. Again, Siobhan, this is absolutely, factually incorrect. It wasn't rape that they were brought forward by the women. In fact, the women never ever wanted to press charges with regards to this. They didn't want to press charges with regards to anything, let alone rape. Let me remind you, no charges have ever been brought on this, ever. We'll go into it a little bit further. In November of the same year, an arrest warrant for Mr. Assange was issued by the Stockholm District Court and later upheld on the Court of Appeal. With Mr. Assange since having taken up residence in the United Kingdom, an extradition warrant from the Swedish authorities was upheld in English court in February 2011, and Mr. Assange's subsequent appeal against his decision was rejected by the High Court of Justice in November 2011, then dismissed by the Supreme Court in May 2012. It was at that point Mr. Assange sought asylum in the Embassy of Ecuador in London. Siobhan, he sought asylum in the Ecuador in London. Okay, after leaving Sweden. He spoke with all the authorities in Sweden. He got permission from the Swedish authorities to leave Sweden and come to the UK. And then it was only after the FBI got involved and pressured Sweden that they reopened this rape case. That's when he sought asylum over here, because he knew that essentially it was the Americans that had got this sealed indictment on him, which is exactly what has happened, Siobhan. That's exactly what has happened. He's been proven right again. There's so much BS surrounding this. That Mr. Assange spent such a prolonged length of time sheltering in the Ecuadorian embassy has resulted in the statute of limitations expiring on all but one of the charges brought against him by the Swedish authorities. There have never been any charges, Siobhan. Right there, you are lying to your constituents. You are lying to your constituents, Siobhan. Lying. There have never, ever been any charges in Sweden. Ever. That's a lie. A complete fabrication. This is a Labour MP, an elected Labour Member of Parliament, who is lying to her constituents, saying that there are charges being brought from Sweden. There have never been any charges in Sweden, Siobhan. Why are you lying to your constituents about this? Where did you get that information from? Is this official Labour Party policy, is it, with regards to Julian Assange? In May of this year, following the Ecuadorian government's withdrawal of asylum, yes, you skip over the IMF loans and the fact that the IMF, along with the Americans, had been bullying the Ecuadorians into doing this. And eventually they, I don't want to say blackmail, but it does look like that, with IMF loans. They had to cancel because their country was in uprising not long ago. You skip over that part. I digress. Mr. Assange was arrested and sentenced to 50 weeks in prison for failing to surrender to the court in relation to extradition proceedings into Sweden in 2012 in breach of his UK bail conditions. The Swedish authorities subsequently reopened an investigation into the rape allegation made against Mr. Assange. That investigation, Siobhan, has been opened, reopened and closed several times. And you know what I'm noticing? Do you know what I'm noticing? That case, that Swedish investigation, there were rumours of it being reopened and it gets reopened. Whenever this case comes into the fore again, whenever something happens with this case, all of a sudden there are rumours that this Swedish investigation are going to reopen. Why? So the Guardian can write articles, and the Telegraph and the BBC can write articles associating Julian Assange in their titles of their articles about him with rape, in quotes. Getting into the psyche of people to associate Assange with rape, not anything else. Siobhan, you're a Labour MP. A Labour MP. Do you not value truth? And if you're in the Labour Party, what do you say about this? What do you say about a member of Parliament, a member of your own party, lying to their constituents with factual error after factual error on a matter of global press freedom, the biggest threat to press freedom ever in the history of ever. Forever. And she's lying to her constituents on it. This is somebody either badly misinformed or badly lying to a member of her own constituency that gives her the power to do this sort of thing. In regards to the potential extradition of Mr. Assange, she says, I understand that the United States has now submitted a full extradition request to the UK. They've now submitted it, yes, but it was under seal for years, just as Julian Assange said it was, which was the reason he went in. And by the way, you also said there 50 weeks. 50 weeks for failing to appear in court. That's it. It wasn't jumping bail. Failure to appear in court. You didn't appear in court. Right, that's it. 50 weeks in maximum security gitmo for you. Are you seriously, Siobhan, saying that this is how we treat people who's never even set foot in the country that he's allegedly committed these crimes? That's the American one. I mean, the charges that you say have been brought against him by Sweden have never been brought against him. In regards to the potential extradition of Mr. Assange, I understand that the United States has now submitted a full extradition request. No, they've unsealed a sealed document. That's what they've done. While Sweden has issued a European investigation on you. Let me tell you something that Sweden did. Sweden asked for a European arrest warrant. Do you know that? They asked for a European arrest warrant. Do you know it was denied, Siobhan? They denied it. You know why? There wasn't enough evidence. They've issued a European arrest warrant to one guy from Eastern Europe who was, I think it was over in somewhere in Western Europe, it might have even been in the UK, it could have been France, but they issued one of those European arrest warrants because he stole a pig. And they didn't issue one for Julian Assange. Think about what you're saying to your constituency. You're lying to them. You're not giving them the full picture. In order to interview him, issued a European investigation order in order to interview him. Siobhan, the Swedish authorities did interview Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy for 2 days. They gave him permission to leave and come to the UK, and they interviewed him for 2 days. What are you talking about? They've interviewed him. They closed the case afterwards. In the event of 2 extradition requests, it would be the Home Secretary to decide which takes precedence. Well, there's only one extradition request. Why would Sweden try to extradite him when they've never even charged him with anything? Can you see how you've been hoodwinked here by the media? Can you see how you believing the media headlines and whatever, it's got you so confused? You're a member of Parliament. You're an elected member of Parliament, Siobhan. You should know the facts of this case. This is the greatest threat to press freedom in the history of the Western world. And you're talking about charges in Sweden that are totally and utterly fabricated. They've never appeared. I'll carry on with this. Last month, Westminster... By the way, this is going to be a while on Siobhan. Siobhan, please show her this. Show her this stream. I'm going to be a while on this because I've got replies. You'll see. I've got 17 MPs to get through. Strap in, folks. It might be a while. Last month, Westminster Magistrates Court ruled that Mr. Assange should remain in prison beyond the 50 weeks of his sentence until an extradition hearing can take place in February 2020. Yes, so what that means, Siobhan, is now Julian Assange is a political prisoner. Why? Because he's wanted in America for political reasons. Do you know that's in direct violation of United Nations terms of extradition? Can't extradite a political prisoner. But that's exactly what he is. And that's exactly what we're barreling towards. I'm very sorry, people. I've just been informed that I knocked that over and it seems the sound went off. I'll read that again. Thank you. So last month, she said, Westminster Magistrates Court ruled that Mr. Assange should remain in prison beyond the 50 weeks of his sentence until an extradition hearing can take place in February 2020. He should have been released from that sentence already, Siobhan. As per the rules of this country and the laws of this country, Mr. Assange was entitled to release after half of his sentence was completed. He's not a hardened criminal or anything like that. He hasn't got a history of absconding, as you said. He just didn't appear in court once because he thought the Americans were going to extradite him. He thought it was a ruse for America to extradite him, which is exactly what it was. I do not believe that what we are now faced with is a question of whether Mr. Assange's decision to publish classified US diplomatic and military documents was justified or not, she says. Rather, this is a question of whether we respect the rule of law and believe that Mr. Assange should be made to stand trial for the crimes he is accused of having committed against these women. Siobhan, he has never, ever faced any charges from them. These women have never asked him to stand trial for any charges. They've never accused him of anything. The one woman wanted him to take a test. That was it. Let's remember, no charges ever brought forward from Sweden, Siobhan. Neither girl ever wanted to press charges against him. One just wanted a test. The only evidence about this rape, these including rape charges, is a ripped condom with no DNA in it of Julian Assange or the woman. Go figure that. That's an impossibility. A ripped condom that came in the middle of multiple consensual sexual encounters between the two. With a case, an investigation, that's all it is, that has been opened and reopened and closed more times than a suitcase. And rumours of it reopening only reappear when Assange is due in court or maybe some momentum gets behind Assange. All of a sudden, you see Julian Assange's name and rape in the title of headlines in the newspapers again, don't they? The extradition to the United States is what we're talking about, Siobhan, not Sweden. You're so far off the mark with this, it's honestly comical. You are an elected member of Parliament. She continues, I believe that he should be extradited and stand trial in Sweden. For what? There's never been any charges, Siobhan. What are you talking about? It is simply not good enough, irrespective of how we might feel about Mr. Assange's actions as director of WikiLeaks, to turn a blind eye in the case of these two women who have been denied justice for so long already. What justice? They've never I could go on. I don't need to, beat this dead donkey enough, do I? I hope that this response is helpful in clarifying my views on the issue. They certainly are. They do clarify your views on this issue, because they clarify my view that your views are totally and utterly misinformed, and you are lying to a member of your own constituency. This is a Labour MP, and Jeremy Corbyn wants my vote, and people like the person who sent this email. Gotta do better, Labour. Gotta do better. My friend who sent the original email replied, "Thanks for your support, for your response," they said. "I agree that he should face extradition to Sweden to face the rape charges." Okay, to this person I would say, right, you're wrong there. There's no rape charges ever in Sweden. Ever, ever, ever. When you're replying to Siobhan about this, maybe show her this video. Say, here's my video, here's my response to your video, here's Gordon Dimmack explaining all the times that you were wrong in your email on the biggest case for press freedom ever in the history of the Western world. That's what you say to them. You say there's never been ever charges ever. Neither girl had wanted to press charges. All one wanted was a test for him to have. The only evidence with these rape charges is a ripped condom that appeared that had no DNA on of either partner. Allegations of rape by neither one of the multiple consensual sexual encounters between them. In a case that's been opened, reopened and closed more times than you can shake a stick at. Which, as far as I can tell, the only reason that happens, and the only reason there are rumours, is just so the headlines can be written to confuse people. People like you, Siobhan, who should know better. My friend continued. He said, "I agree, but he should face..." No, you're wrong there, my friend. "Would like to add your weight behind the refusal to extradite Julian Assange to the USA. USA would like to charge..." Okay, so the person gets her back on track. This is great. Bring her back on track. Listen, there's still no charges from Sweden. USA would like to charge him for being a good journalist. They would like to punish him for publishing files which were in the public's interest to ensure a healthy democracy is maintained. Can you raise this in the Commons? I am not defending him against the rape allegations. Allegations is all they are, and they're not from either women. If he is guilty, he should be charged and face the consequences, but he should not be charged with espionage for doing his job, for doing what journalists should be doing, but have stopped doing. Brilliant. 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 Siobhan replied with this. "Thank you for your reply, although the stand by the blue that I have outlined in my previous email. I do not believe that the question we are faced with is whether Mr. Assange's decision to publish classified US diplomatic and military documents was justified or not. That's exactly what we're faced with, Siobhan. This is a publisher who they are extraditing and torturing right now. Torturing in the centre of London. I'm going to be there outside the prison tomorrow. They're torturing this man for publishing the truth about war criminals. She says, "I believe that Mr. Assange should be extradited to stand trial in Sweden." Where? Under what charges? What charges? What allegations? The only allegations I ever see are in the press. That's it. Do your job, woman. I understand that Sweden has issued a European investigation order, and they couldn't even get an EAW signed. You can get a European arrest warrant for a guy who stole a pig, but you can't get one for Julian Assange when he's meant to be this serial rapist, as you are trying to allege in your ridiculous smears. If 2 extradition requests were to be submitted, the Home Secretary decides which takes precedence. Like I say, there's never going to be an extradition request from Sweden. There's never been any charges. My view is clear, she says, irrespective of how we might feel about his actions. As director of WikiLeaks, Mr. Assange should be extradited and to stand trial in Sweden. You, Siobhan, are a complete and utter disgrace. This is the biggest threat to press freedom the West has ever faced. And you are bullshitting your own constituency. And right now you're probably out there campaigning saying, "Oh, vote for me. I tell the truth." No, you don't. You're full of shit. Everything I've said so far to you is factually true. Go and check it. Get your goddamn facts right. I am a member of this country. I am a citizen of this country. You represent me in Parliament as well. Siobhan isn't the only one. There are many. I'm going to take you through a few. So I'm not done by this by a damn shot of sight. I really am not. Excuse me. Just want to. Just want to bring up this person's face who I'm going to be talking about. All right. So the next response I've got is from another Labour politician. It's this one, Preet Gill. Preet Carr? I think it's Carr. She's Labour for Birmingham Edgbaston, not far from me. She's the first female British Sikh MP. It's great stuff. Great stuff. This isn't the worst response I've seen by a long shot. Long shot. That was a Freudian slip, wasn't it? Thank you for contacting me about Julian Assange, she says. As I hope you understand, I cannot comment on ongoing legal matters apart from to say that any process must be fair and proper. Correct. Okay, that's a good start. It's a good start. Any process must be fair and proper. Preet. And to the person who she's responding to, I would say respond to this. I would say link to the info at wiseupaction.info and link to the info on Craig Murray's blog and link to the interviews with John Pilger. The people who were in the public gallery of the latest Magistrates Court appearance that I appeared. Look at my interview, Preet. Look at my interview with Emmy Butlin outside. She was distraught at what she saw. Certainly what they witnessed in that public gallery could not be considered fair and proper. So it's good that you open your letter with that. I do think it should be fair and proper too. And it isn't. That's why you should get involved. She continues, as you are aware, Julian Assange was arrested in April for failing to surrender to the court in relation to extradition proceedings to Sweden in 2012. What extradition proceedings, Preet? Again, Labour politician, what extradition proceedings from Sweden were there, Preet? Labour MP. There's never been any extradition proceedings in Sweden. As I keep saying in this over and over and over again on this channel, and I will keep saying it until enough people. There's never been any charges in Sweden, let alone extradition. He failed to appear in court. Get this straight. He failed to appear in court because he believed that the Americans had a sealed indictment and that as soon as he was in custody from anything that happened in Sweden, but in custody here, he would be extradited. They would unseal that document and extradite him. Guess what happened? As soon as he set foot outside that, as soon as they dragged him out of that embassy in an act of fascism, Preet, on home soil, Preet, that indictment was unsealed. And the extradition request came in. When are you politicians going to stop bullshitting about Sweden? When are you going to do it? When are you going to finally start telling the people the truth? Or people like me just sitting here, looking at this BS. Do you have a clue what you're doing? You're the opposition to this sham government, for Christ's sake. This is the best that we can do. People who think that they're extradition proceedings to Sweden, she says. There were never any proceedings, Preet. There were never any charges, and there never have been, and there never will be. He was found guilty of his offence and on 1st of May was sentenced to 50 weeks in prison. There was a debate in Parliament about his arrest, she continues, which can be read in Hansard. I remember the debate. It was disgusting. When he was arrested, it was disgusting. Diane Abbott there with 3 people behind her. 3 people. Saying they opposed the extradition of a journalist, of a publisher, for publishing factual information that proved war criminals were war criminals. And she just had 3 or 4 of her mates behind her. It's disgusting, is what it was. Were you there, Preet? I don't remember. This is a fast-moving issue in terms of legal process. You're not kidding. They are trying to get him, they're trying to run roughshod over the legal system and get him ejected over to America before the public get behind this. Because believe me, Preet, when the public know about this, when people know the facts, they get pissed off. I understand that the United States has submitted a full extradition request to the UK in respect of Mr. Assange, while Sweden has issued a European investigation order. Again, European investigation order. Why? Because the EAW failed in order to interview Mr. Assange. They've interviewed him. They spent 2 days in the Ecuadorian embassy interviewing him. Spent 2 days. In the event of 2 extradition requests, again, she says the same thing as Siobhan. So they're obviously getting their talking points from somewhere. So this is some sort of Labour policy, because that is basically verbatim what was Siobhan sent. This matter is in the hands of the British courts and legal system, where there are various grounds on which extradition may be resisted. Damn right. First of all, the United Nations one. You can't extradite a political prisoner. We're torturing this man. He's in solitary confinement. He's in solitary confinement, having committed no crime on this soil, other than failing to appear in court. I know plenty of people who failed to appear in court. They didn't get 50 weeks in Gitmo. Most of them don't even get a slap on the wrist or a fine. You threw him in Gitmo? These are matters to be determined by the court, and MPs cannot interfere. Yes, but if the court's proceedings are not fair and proper, as you said in the top of this email, then that's that's an area for concern, isn't it? Well, I'm telling you, this is not fit and proper. Like I say, go and read the people's versions of events who actually saw that sham at court, that kangaroo court. I understand that Mr. Assange's legal team intend to contest this extradition request. No shit. On the more general issue of press freedom, rather than on this specific case, I believe we should protect all aspects of it. Really, do you? Because it doesn't sound like it. Your previous 4 or 5 paragraphs sounds to me like you don't give a shit about press freedom, because you're trying to say that this is something to do with Sweden. You're trying to say, no, it's not press freedom, it's Sweden. When you know damn well it's got everything to do with press freedom and the fact that he proved war criminals were war criminals. A global conference for media freedom took place in July in London. Yeah, he never even came up. His name never even came up. They were banning Unity 4J accounts for tweeting about it. Twitter were, yes. I had Christy Doff on my channel, we talked about it. I hope that this can achieve maximum impact in its aims in defending media freedom and improving the safety of journalists who report across the world. Preet, you're an opposition MP. What the defend media freedom bullshit is a Goebbels-like product to say, look at us defending media freedom. Meanwhile, our media is bullshitting us on a regular basis and telling us factual lies, missing out important information that we should hear, all because of this information war that they're having on their own goddamn people. that you, by the look of it, are going along with. Preet Kaur, Edgbaston, shame on you. Shame on you. Get informed, Labour. This is from Mike Freer, who's Conservative, for Finchley and Golders Green. He says this: I was encouraged to see the situation in the Ecuadorian embassy finally come to an end. Ecuador's action recognised that the UK's criminal justice system is one in which rights are protected and in which, contrary to what Mr Assange and his supporters may claim, he and his legitimate interests will be protected. I will say this to you, Mike. If I failed to appear in court, let's say I failed to appear in court, do you think that I deserve 50 weeks in our Guantanamo Bay as a result, in 23-hour, solitary confinement, torture, after spending 7 years in arbitrary detention? These are the UN's words. Would you think that would be fair to me? Because if the answer's no, then why is it fair to Julian Assange? If because the way I see it is, if you suspend human rights for one person in this country, none of us do. And right now you're doing that. As you will know, in May, as a result of Mr Assange's failure to surrender in relation to his extradition proceedings, what extradition proceedings? What extradition proceedings? No. He failed to surrender in relation to something in Sweden that he knew that was going to happen, so that the United Kingdom could get him in custody and extradite him under that sealed indictment. You're lying. You're lying to your own constituencies here, Mike. You're lying to them. Lying. And now you're probably saying, oh, elect me. I'm a good guy. I tell the truth. No, you're a liar. You may be also aware that the Home Secretary recently signed an extradition warrant following a request by the United States Department of Justice. In making this decision, the Home Secretary had limitations on what he could be considered in line with the Crime and Courts Act 2013. Judgments on human rights or health issues can only be made in court. So the thing is, this is the human rights issues. First of all, human rights and health issues. You'll bring that up. His human rights are being violated and his health is deteriorating badly. We are killing him, a journalist, for publishing the truth about war criminals. We are doing that, Mike. But we are a member of the United Nations, and the United Nations will say you can't extradite a political prisoner. They also say that you can't extradite a prisoner to another country with the death penalty. And they also say that Ecuador also promised that we wouldn't extradite him to a country where Assange could get the death penalty. And we all know that, hey, we all know the Jeffrey Epstein saga, he didn't commit suicide. We're killing a journalist, Mike, and you're allowing it to happen. You're facilitating it. The judgment from the administrative hearing at the Westminster Magistrate Court has ruled that Mr Assange will face a 5-day US extradition hearing beginning on the 25th of February 2020. We'll see about that, mate. Because I'll tell you this, support is behind him. Mike, that was one of the less factually incorrect responses. And I've gone through all of these before, and what I've found is that the Conservatives are pretty much all the same as Mike's response there. Very short, to the point, not many factual errors. There are a few in that. But as you can see from the Labour ones, it's the Labour ones that are really falling down. There is no opposition in this country. We've got no adversarial journalism, and we've got no opposition. That's what I'm reading into this. We've got no adversarial journalism, and we've got no opposition. Because our opposition should know. They should be beating the Conservatives over the head with this. They should be beating Boris Johnson senseless. And the fact that they're not, and they're gaslighting their own constituents tells me one of two things. Either A, They're lying on purpose because they're up to no good, and they know what's going to happen, and they know that they're going to rush this through and try to get him over there to kill him or to get him in a show trial or whatever. Or two, and this is even scarier, they haven't got a fucking clue what they're doing. This is from David Mundell, Conservative again. You can see there, that is almost word for word the same. You see? It's almost word for word. So the Conservatives there, Mike Freer and David Mundell, they're on point. It's almost word for word. I think it might be, to be honest. We'll come down to this one from Nick Brown. Nick Brown, Labour, again. Let's see if this is a better one, shall we? Thank you for contacting me, he says. I strongly believe that the separation of powers between those who make the law and those who administer the law is of fundamental importance to a free society. I will therefore be unable to sign the early day motion that you reference, he says. However, getting them on record, that's the main thing. This was the debate in Parliament about Julian Assange's arrest. Okay. During the debate, Diane Abbott, the Shadow Home Secretary, said, in this country we have protections for whistleblowers. Underpinning this legislation is the correct premise. Not that anyone can leak anything they like, but the protections should be afforded to those who take personal risks to disclose wrongdoing, where that disclosure serves the public interest. Julian Assange is at risk of extradition to the United States precisely because, as we in the opposition believe, he has exposed material that is in the utmost public interest. This is encouraging. I am aware that the United States has submitted a full extradition request to the UK, while Sweden has issued a European investigation order in order to interview Julian Assange. Why? They've already interviewed him twice. The case has been opened and reopened too many times. As I keep saying, no charges whatsoever. Neither woman in question wanted any charges brought against Julian Assange. The only evidence in anything was a ripped condom that appeared that has no DNA of either person. That happened. A ripped condom that came in the middle of multiple consensual sexual encounters between the two parties. An investigation that only ever gets reopened or talked about, rumours of it reopening, whenever the Assange case comes up, to change the title of Assange appears in court because he proved war criminals were war criminals, to Assange faces allegations of possible rape charges being brought from Sweden. To change the people's psyche. It's Orwellian, but that's what's happening. In order to interview Julian Assange, he says, in the event of 2 extradition requests, he goes on and says that again, in the event of 2 extradition requests. So, Labour, this is definitely something that they have been, schooled on. They're all saying this in the event of 2 extradition requests. Why would there be another extradition request? There's never been any charges. Stop trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. Like I say, you're either lying to people or you're sadly misinformed, and you shouldn't be in that position in the first place if you are. This matter is in the hands of the British courts and legal system, where there are various grounds on which the extradition may be resisted. These are matters to determine to the court. Like I say, would one of those grounds be this is not a fair and proper process in the court? You need to look into this, Nick. You need to look into this. Look at Craig Murray, John Pilger. Look at my interview with Emmy Butlin. This is not a fair and proper judicial process. We are throwing the rule of law out the window. We've suspended human rights for this man because he published the truth about war criminals. If you're going to do that, none of us have human rights. None of us. Not even you. A full hearing for Julian Assange's extradition, blah, 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 he says. Nick, I would reply to Nick with all the things I just said. Next one is Alan Duncan. Now, I've got several responses from Alan Duncan, who is Conservative MP who once called Assange a miserable little worm in the Houses of Parliament. Alan Duncan was defence, Minister for Defence at one stage, before one of, I think it was Theresa May's reshuffles. Or it could be when Bojo came in. But anyway, he's stepping down. He's no longer going to be MP. He's probably going to go off and get some wonderful contract somewhere in the revolving door that is, you know, the MPs. But he's a lost cause. He's Alan Duncan. He was never, ever going to come out on the side. But he did say this: his dissemination of classified material to not be applauded, as you seem to think. Why not? He proved that the United States were murdering journalists, Duncan. Why not? Why shouldn't his dissemination of classified information be applauded? This is somebody who's been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 7 times, Alan. What have you ever done for peace? I remember that you had to repay a lot of expenses that you took, that you fraudulently took in the expenses crisis. I remember you being on Have I Got News For You, saying, oh, it's a wonderful system. Yeah, you're stepping down as MP. You will not be missed. So this is from Luke Graham. Luke Graham is Conservative as well. Look at this again. Again, look at it. I was encouraged, as you will know, you may also be aware. Look, here's a Conservative MP. I was encouraged, as you will know, you may also be aware. Can you see? The Conservatives are sending out the same response. They are all on message. It's basically the same email that the other two sent. That's Luke Graham. The same email that David Mundell sent and Mike Freer. Conservatives are on message. It's the Labour politicians that are all over the place and are the worst informed on this. It's the Labour politicians that are spreading the most, let's face it, lies. Hate to come down on Labour. I know I've got a lot of Labour supporters who hate the fact that I do it, but I can only call a spade, and I'm seeing the Conservatives on message and the Labour MPs all over the place. All over the place. So this is Catherine West. This is another Labour MP. She says, thank you for your email. As Parliament has now been prorogued, all other delegations have lapsed. Okay, fine. However, as you know, I've written to the Home Secretary about the treatment of Julian Assange and raised questions in Parliament. This is good. Okay, she links through to that. We'll have a look at that in a second. I believe it's absolutely crucial that we defend press freedom, says Catherine West. Labour. Here's a politician on message. I believe it's absolutely crucial that we defend press freedom. I'm a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, which has been looking into the issue of global press freedom. A full report, once finalised, will be published here. I can assure you I will continue to follow this closely. Thank you, Catherine West, Labour Member of Parliament for Hornsey and Wood Green. I just want to say that's not the only good response. I know that of at least one politician that signed the early day motion as a result of supporters of mine and subscribers of the show sending their letters in, and I can't show them, but there are 2 instances of MPs that I know weren't aware. 2 other instances of MPs in the House of Commons from different parties actually, who weren't aware of the seriousness of this nature and now are taking steps to try and get to the bottom of this and to get more exposure. This is why I wanted to do this. This is why I wanted to get people to send these letters in, because for every 5 bad responses I've seen, I've had one really great response. You know, so about 20% of the MPs that you contacted are trying to affect change right now, which is brilliant. And that's just the ones we've contacted once. You know, who knows if Siobhan sees this stream, if Siobhan sees an email from that person that sent them with details of what I've put in, maybe she'll change her mind. Maybe she'll start investigating it as well, especially with an election coming up and you're saying, listen, I'm going to campaign against you if you continue spreading lies like this. I would love, for instance, if Siobhan is campaigning out there and somebody knows where she's going to be, to put a camera in her face and ask her, and ask why has he got to go to Sweden? He's never faced any charges, never been any warrant. Why are you lying to your constituents? This is how we start the ball rolling. This is why it was so important. I'm really, really impressed with the response, to be honest. Although a lot have been bad, there have been some great ones as well. And there might be more, especially if we keep the pressure on. We have to persist with this. We have to persist with the pressure. We can't just write one letter, although one letter's great. One letter's a start. We need to keep going, keep pushing, keep telling people, keep expanding people's knowledge of it. I'll get back to these letters. Let me have a drink of my coffee. Yeah, good for Catherine West, says Rob Juno in the chat. Yeah, good for Catherine West. Ian Brown says, free Assange demonstration, HMP Belmarsh, Saturday 2 p.m. That's Saturday the 9th of November. Nearest BR bus station is Plumstead, and then a fair walk. Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow, outside there, 2 p.m. at Belmarsh, for the next rally. If this was another time, Gordon would be getting a Pulitzer, says Karen. Yeah, there's no chance of that in today's times, Karen. or another time, to be honest. I think you've got to be a war criminal or have a record of drone bombing countries to oblivion to get a Nobel Peace Prize at the moment, or Pulitzer. No, that's Nobel Peace Prize, isn't it? A Pulitzer. I wouldn't say I deserve a Pulitzer. Nowhere near. I'm not Chris Hedges. So this one is from Sarah Wollaston. Now, Sarah Wollaston is a Lib Dem MP. Was she a Conservative MP? I think she was one of the Conservatives who moved over to the Lib Dems, wasn't she? There have been so many moves around these MPs. I mean, there's one MP, is it Heidi Allen? I think she's been a member of 4 different parties in the last, 10 months or something, and now she's going to step down. It's remarkable. So this is Sarah Wollaston. She's a Lib Dem, although, like I say, she might have been Conservative. She said as well, I'm afraid I do not sign any EDMs, as they have no effect whatsoever in Parliament. They don't. This is true. They don't. It's literally just Parliament declares our support for so-and-so. But like I say, the point of this was to get them on record talking about Julian Assange and see what they say. So let's see what Sarah Wollaston says. I'm afraid, she says, Mr. Assange also faces very serious allegations and possible requests from Sweden to answer those allegations. And I should point that out, though the case was closed, it was reopened again in May and it is ongoing. Swedish prosecutors are still conducting interviews on existing witnesses, and as I understand it, began interviewing 2 new witnesses last month on 9th of September, blah, 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 blah. Right, okay, Sarah, I don't need to go into, what you're saying about this, because you can see it's the same line as the other load. In fact, I'll read it out. I'll read the rest of this paragraph out and then I'll explain where you're wrong. On the 9th of September, the Swedish Deputy Director of Public Prosecution, Eva Marie, said she would decide how to proceed with the case once those interviews had been analysed. No decision has yet been made public. Those allegations made by 2 Swedish women should not be ignored. This is a matter for the courts and I would not oppose his extradition to answer those charges in Sweden. Sarah, you buggered up, I'm afraid. You were doing so well. You, as well, lying to your constituents. No charges from Sweden ever. Ever. No charges from Sweden. He's been interviewed multiple times. You can see what's happening here. It was all a ruse. It was a ruse. They just get the allegations coming up in Sweden again to try and get people confused. This has got nothing to do with Sweden, Sarah. Nothing to do with Sweden. Nothing. If this had anything to do with Sweden, like I said, let's say it again, go over it again. Sarah Wollaston, no charges ever in Sweden. Neither woman ever wanted to press charges against him for anything. One woman just wanted him to take a test. Just think about that. Think about it. They've never said that he raped them, ever. They didn't. The women, who you are saying, now there's charges in Sweden over. Gordon, would you like to, your girlfriend to face charges of your rape? My girlfriend's never raped me. Throwing it, Mo. Do you see what I mean? Get an extradition order, get an arrest warrant, but she's never raped me. Doesn't matter. I know that the Home Secretary has stated that when it comes to extradition requests, whether they come from, it is absolutely right that the courts and the government consider an individual's human rights, and I think that this is the right approach. Sarah, you were doing so well. There have never been any charges in Sweden. Stop talking about Sweden. And for anybody who is going to be replying to their MPs, just say, listen, this has got nothing to do with Sweden, and bullet point them. No charges ever in Sweden. Neither girl wanted to bring charges against him. The only evidence was a ripped condom with no DNA of either party on. It was in the middle of frequent consensual sexual encounters between the two parties. The investigation only gets opened and reopened whenever this case comes up, so they can write their headlines and get people confused and see headlines with Julian Assange and rape in the title. Let's see who's next. Up Sarah Wollaston, Lib Dem. Maria Miller, Conservatives. Oh yeah, let's show you who Sarah Wollaston is. There's Sarah Wollaston. Next we've got Maria Miller, who is a Conservative. Here's Maria Miller. Can you see the pattern? Straight away, can you see the pattern? Another Conservative. First paragraph, I was encouraged to see. Second, as you will know. Third, you may also be aware. Can you see? I was encouraged to see. As you will know, you may also be aware. Can you see? I was encouraged to see. As you will know, you may also be aware. So the Conservatives have been given here standard letters to send out to their constituents whenever they ask questions. You can see that's clear as day. I think, it is not... this is not conjecture from me. All of these are almost exactly the same. The Conservatives are on point with it. They're wrong with it. They're all wrong, as I've highlighted in the first two. Well, I don't need to go through that one again. Maria Miller, same as with Luke Graham and the others that I saw at the top. Who was it? David Mundell and Mike Freer. Same responses to them. Now we've got Robert Halfon, the Conservative. Now this is actually, he's a Conservative, but he hasn't gone with the bog standard response that they've all sent out. He says the 5-day US extradition hearing that begins in February will consider the pertinent human rights and health issues in the case. Well, why not? Why shouldn't we look at his human rights now? Robert, he's being tortured. That's not my words. That's the words of the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture. This is the collective persecution. Collective persecution. This is a superpower that's had 7-8 years to prepare this case against this man for publishing the truth on them. And he's not even got access to a library. He continued, it is for a judge to decide whether or not extradition would result in a human rights breach or whether extradition would be unjust or oppressive on account of health of defendant. The Crime and Courts Act, blah, 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 blah. He continues. I would reply to him and just say, look at the testimony of the people who were in the court. This is not a fair trial. Justice is not being done here. Look at how the magistrate was just bending over backwards for the Americans in the back of the room and was treating Assange and his lawyers with contempt and was so fawning over them. Listen to their recollections of it. All of them. This is not a fair trial. This is a kangaroo court. This decision has already been made. There is no rule of law by the look of it when it comes to this in this country. And like I say with you, Robert, this is the greatest threat to press freedom in the history of the world. The world. Does that not register with you? Does it not register that if they do this with Assange, they can do it with anybody? The Guardian, the New York Times, Washington Post, a lot. Any of them. This is the death of the fourth estate, you numpty. Next is Rupert, is it Rupert Hook? Yeah, Rupert Hook. This is, another Labour politician, isn't it, Rupert Hook? She said this, unfortunately, I'm limited in my ability to act on this issue as an opposition MP in the UK. I understand that this action lies with the central government and the appropriate diplomatic channels. While I thank you for bringing the EDM to my attention, I tried to find that they are the most effective way to engage these issues. Okay. She says, I recognise the statements and stances by various human rights organisations and the UN on this matter and fully support any and all individuals' right to due process and the maintenance of human rights. I trust our legal system to deliver a fair and just verdict in line with international human rights norms. I would reply to Rupert. In fact, I want to say to you now, Rupert, his human rights are not being followed. He's been tortured. Collective persecution by multiple states of him. That's not my words, that's the United Nations Rapporteur on Torture. United Nations Rapporteur on Torture, who just a few days ago, there's a United Nations statement from him saying he fears he's going to be killed. That's the United Nations Rapporteur, the special guy, their specialist on torture, who's saying that. You better act, Rupert. You need to act. This is the greatest threat to press freedom the world has ever seen. Two short paragraphs like that is not enough. It does not cut the mustard. Okay, there's another one here, but I'm not... There's another one here. I'm not sure whether I can show it though, because, the person... I'm not sure. I won't scroll down any more people. There is a couple more, but I wasn't sure of whether the people who have sent me them have given me permission to show these. But I think you can see from these responses that first of all, it's encouraging. Okay, as bad as some of them have been, especially Siobhan McDonagh. Come on, Siobhan. If you want re-elected, you've got to get on the ball with these things, matters of importance. And if you're a Labour MP, educate this woman, for crying out loud. But for every bad one, there were some good ones as well. Like I say, there are other MPs who are now, I know, are active, and I don't want to say too much, but people, this is starting to work. We've got the ball rolling. Now let's make sure it doesn't gather any moss, Let's keep it rolling. So let's reply to them. If you've had a reply, please reply to them. Explain them to them. Listen, this is bigger than this is not about Sweden. There've never been any charges with Sweden. Neither girl had ever wanted during the charge with anything. One of them just wanted them to have a test. The only evidence in this whole Sweden thing is a whipped condom with no DNA on it that came in the middle of multiple consensual sexual encounters between the two parties. There have never been any charges from Sweden. The only time the investigation ever gets started again is when, you know, Julian Assange case comes up. It's, oh, quick, start up the investigation again, or have rumours that it's going to start up again quick so we can put Assange and rape in the title. Don't take my word for it. Just go and look. This is the greatest threat to press freedom the world has ever seen, the Western world has ever seen. And worst of all, and this is the worst of it, this is what scares me. And to all those MPs who have replied to their constituents like this and are talking about rape, this scares me, this does. I'm a journalist. What happens if somebody gives me information that's in the public interest and I release that information? I refuse to give up my source as a journalist. What happens then? If it's information that the government didn't like me releasing, am I going to be thrown in Gitmo? Am I going to spend 50 weeks in Gitmo? Or worse, if I release information on the American government from here that's true and factual and in the public interest, are you going to throw me in Gitmo and then extradite me to America where I'll no doubt die in prison? Quickly. This is fucking scary. You've thrown away this man's human rights. If he doesn't have human rights, none of us do. None of us. And for all those MPs still talking about Sweden, you really need to either A, stop intentionally lying to your constituents, or B, get informed quick. Because if you're still talking about Sweden as an MP with regards to Julian Assange, after all of the factual information I've just given you, this is factual. Don't take my word for it. Go and check every word. It's true, I promise you. If any word of it is untrue, I'll gladly correct the record. Gladly. Get on board with this. It's really important. And keep sending the MPs the letters. Keep supporting Julian Assange. Like I say, there's one outside Belmarsh Prison on the 9th. That's tomorrow at 2 p.m. And I hope to see you there. I haven't had another reply from my MP yet. She's out campaigning right now for votes. She hasn't replied to my email saying he's a political prisoner. She replied to my first one. And then I responded. I did a show about it. She still hasn't responded to me. 3 weeks later. 5 weeks and she sent me one response. And now she's out campaigning saying, oh, I'm campaigning for justice and free speech and telling the truth. No, she's not. She doesn't give a shit about it. If she did, she would have responded by now. She gives a shit about getting re-elected. I wish I had a bigger following. I'd make sure she wouldn't. Okay. Thank you to everybody who has participated in this. Thank you to everybody who sent letters in to their MPs. Please reply. Please send letters to other people as well, to other organisations. Get the ball rolling. If you go to the WikiLeaks Defence site, let me just show it up. I'll give you the link in the chat. Here it is. So there's the link in the chat. At least, yeah, there it is. It's gone through. And this is from the WikiLeaks website, defend.wikileaks.org. And this will give you all of the things that you can do with regards to supporting him and getting your MPs on board. It's really important. The MPs, that's the important one. Not just the MPs, famous people as well, people with a big platform. You know, if you know of anybody with a big platform, then get them interested in it as well. if you know of anybody in a big platform, you know, maybe get them to come on the show and I'll educate them about it. This is really important. It's not, this is not, I was at the MIA concert the other day and she said that, no, yeah, John Shipton was there. I forget who said it now, whether it was John Shipton or whatever, but they'd gone in and they'd seen him. And Julian Assange said, this is not about me. This is about you. And it's so true, that is. Think about it. When he was dragged out of that embassy in that act of fascism, as the great John White says, when he was dragged out of that, he wasn't shouting, I'm not a rapist, and he wasn't shouting, you know, I'm innocent, and he wasn't shouting death to America or anything like that. He was shouting the UK has no sovereignty. The UK must resist. He's thinking about you. He's thinking about me. He's thinking about all of us. He's thinking about us because he knows how this Seltzer president is the death of the fourth estate, it's the death of journalism, it's the death of the free press in the West. It really is. It's that important. And we need to make our MPs understand, and we need to make our MPs understand that unless they take this seriously, they will not get our support. And we're going to make things extremely difficult for them. Thank you very much to everybody who has sent in letters. Please continue to do so. Even if it's not to support the early day motion, just to ask them what they're doing about Julian Assange. You know, he's in prison. They're torturing somebody who just published factual stuff in the public interest that proved war criminals were war criminals. And now we're torturing him. And it looks like they just want him to they'd rather him die in prison. Let's face it, and give up. He's a broken man. Well, he's a beaten man. He's not broken. He's beat down. He's struggling to remember his name in court. That's how much we've tortured him. To all you people who's about talking about human rights and rights in Sweden. Well, what about the rights of him? He's being tortured. A once encyclopedic mind now can't even remember his own name. That was the words of Caitlin Johnston. Keep the pressure on, everybody. There is one other, let me just see this, because I had an email from a journalist, actually, a real journalist, beforehand saying I could use something of his. Okay. Alright, I'll check into that. I'll have to check into that because that's on my Twitter, but there is another response that somebody else has had as well. So keep them coming, everybody. I'll do this regularly if I have to. If I have to keep showing their responses and showing where they're factually incorrect and showing where these MPs are lying to you, then I will do. And I think we all should. It's really important. All right, that's it for today. I shall be back tomorrow with my live stream from Belmarsh Prison at 2 p.m, which I'm going to go away and prepare for now. It's been a long week, everybody. Thank you very much for all your help, everybody. Thank you very much for all your support. Thank you very much, everybody who sent me, you know, $1 or more over the last few weeks to keep me going. The next 6 weeks are going to be pricey. They're going to be expensive. I want to go to where these politicians are and ask them myself, stick a camera in their face. So if you can, please go to my website, gordondimmack.com, and go down to the journalism drive and how to support me through PayPal or Patreon or Bitcoin as well. I love Bitcoin. Yeah, support independent media as well, not just me. We're the ones telling the truth here. The politicians and the public relations for the elite, which are known as our mainstream media, our mockingbird media, they're not telling the truth. Support indie media. And we need to be the media. Our media are not going to change. We need to just make them step aside. And that only comes with you getting more and more people on our side. Thanks very much for all your support, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow. Take care. Free Julian Assange.